Deborah. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Deborah.
Thanks for the kind introduction, Brad. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I forgot what I was going to say. So my job here tonight, I'm really nervous. I just have to tell you, I'm extremely nervous. Speaking was never, in fact, I'm pretty sure I got an F in speech in college. It's been a long time. I know it was a solid D- if it wasn't an F, so let's just see. We're just going to let go and let God here. So my job is to tell you what it was like and what happened to me and what it's like now. And just to get a little housekeeping out of the way first. My sobriety date is May 6th of 2017, 2.5 years yesterday. Let's see, I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who I believe has a sponsor, and I sponsor women in the program, which has just been a true joy. I feel really blessed to have to be able to do that, to be able to share my experience and my strength and my hope with those women who are trying to stay sober, like the rest of us. I do, as Brad mentioned, I do service work. I really enjoy it. I take meetings to detention and detox and IOP for this group, and I'm on some committees, and I did start that early on, and that's probably one of the reasons that I'm standing up here tonight talking to you guys, because I don't believe that would be the case had I not really started early, reaching out, helping others as soon as possible, as soon as I could. Anyway, I'm going to get on with my story, a little bit about my life and what it was like for me growing up. My parents I was born into a lovely family. My parents were kind and sweet and considerate. I had a really loving father and mother. I had wonderful memories of my early childhood. We did always as a family. I have 3 brothers, 2 older and 1 younger. By the way, which my younger brother is an alcoholic, and in the program. He's been sober a little bit longer than I have, and we do have a lot of alcoholics in our family, grandfather, nieces, nephews, some of which are in the program and some aren't. Anyway, but getting on with my story, I have great memories of my childhood. Dad, we took wonderful trips, we camped, we hiked, we boated, we were always on swim team, we were always, very active, and as a young girl, I was extremely happy if I didn't have to deal with those crazy brothers of mine. But it was other than that, it was all good. My dad was Air Force, so we traveled a lot, which was a really good thing. I have certainly a lot of great memories of that. We spent some time in Germany when I was a young girl, and in fact, I was 3 years old. I was in German kindergarten. I remember, this just tells you a little bit. I was very stubborn, very willful child, and I was in a German kindergarten, and like little kids do, just like a sponge. I soaked it up, and I learned. I was fluent in German in no time. And I would go home and start talking German to my parents, and they didn't understand a word I was saying. I can remember getting spanked for not speaking English to my, that's just the kind of thing that I did. I thought it was great, and it's all right. He still loves me. I still got to sit on his lap every night. My parents drank probably every night. Cocktail or 2 was all they had. To me, as a young girl, as a young woman, alcohol always kind of equaled fun and happiness, and because I saw my parents have a good time with that. There was never any anger or fussing or fighting or arguments, and they would have a couple of drinks and have dinner, and that was it. so it was, but alcohol was always, in our lives. It was always a part of what we did. And like I said, sit on my dad's lap. I can remember smelling the bourbon, smelling that in his drink, and loving that, and kind of relating that smell to, to him. Sadly, when I was 10, my dad was sent to Vietnam and was killed there. So our family just, fell apart. My mother, he actually latched onto her at a pretty early age. He was 17 years older. Mom was 17 when she married my dad. So, she was, mid-30s when he died, and a young widow with 4 kids, did not know how to deal, and pretty much emotionally kind of checked out for us for a long time. I don't know that she ever really came back all the way, but so we were kind of left to our own devices, so to speak. My grandmother moved in with us after we moved to Lexington, Kentucky. Moved back to where most of my family's from, and my mom wanted some family support and friend support that she knew, from growing up. So we moved back there, and my grandmother moved in, but didn't really know how to handle, for 2 teenagers and a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So and Mom went to work, so we were kind of just my brother was my oldest brother was 16, and really partying hard. Bringing a lot of booze into the house. We would sneak down into the basement. This is 11, 12 years old, and I remember drinking beer with them, and just thinking it was so cool, and they thought it was so cool that they could give their sister, alcohol. About 12 years old, I can remember, right before school one day, one of my best friends. I lived in this neighborhood where I had some great girlfriends there, and but one of my best friends came over, and I said, "Oh, let's just have some of Mom's bourbon before we go to school." And she said, "Okay, I'll try it." And so I took a big old swig, and I just loved the way it tasted, loved the way it smelled, loved the way it felt, and I thought it was great. And the other girl just went and went to the bathroom, and she never made it to school that day. But I went right on, and it was a great day. So, that was probably, had I known then, but, so I mentioned, I moved into this neighborhood with all these girls, and coming in, so age 13, 14, whatever, when I entered junior high school, there was they had junior high sororities in Lexington. So I was asked to join this junior high sorority called Merrymakers. And it was all about the heck nights, the H nights. And on these H nights, for initiation, it was all about drinking, and it was all about, getting drunk, see how you could handle your liquor. And of course I excelled in that, but not really. I didn't really. I actually, I had a really hard time with that. But so anyway, alcohol was just in my life, and it was a part of what I did, and it was just what happened. I age 14, 15, some of my girlfriends and I, had crushes on my older brother's friends that were in a fraternity at UK, and so we decided that we would go to the fraternity party. And I asked my cousin to take us, and he dropped us off at this fraternity party. We're 14, 15 years old, and the next thing I remember was my mother. I'm outside getting sick and underneath some bushes, just laying there, just really sick to all over everything. And my mother was just shaking me and picking me up and putting me in the car because we had, told all these stories. No, obviously nobody's mothers or parents knew where the other child was. So, but they had kind of all gotten together, the moms, and found out. So, yeah, Mom picked me up. But that was just one of the, examples. That was probably the worst trouble that I ever got into as a child, or at least that I could remember. I went on through high school. My mother remarried, and we moved to a small town outside of Lexington for a few years, and I was kind of always the party girl. I was the new girl on the block. So I brought something new to the table. So I thought I had to show everybody, well, this is what you do to have fun. You go out and you get the booze from whoever you can get it from, the beer, whatever, for Friday nights and Saturday nights, and that was kind of my thing. I thought it was a big shot. Teaching my friends all that. But I still was not. I was drinking some, not getting drunk every Friday or Saturday night, and certainly not drinking during the day at all. When I was in high school, my mother did a couple of really crazy things. I was always dating older men, and I decided, my sights were set on the guys that were out of high school, that were older, 4 or 5 years older. That was my thing. And so Mom, the first thing she did, the summer of after my sophomore year, she decided that she was going to send me to a girls' school in Guadalajara, Mexico, for the summer to get me away from these guys that she thought that I shouldn't be seeing. So I did that, and bless her heart, she never knew what she put me. She put me right in the middle of a disastrous situation. I was exposed to more down there than I could ever have been exposed to anywhere else. And, these girls were crazy. Nobody wanted, their parents didn't want, here we are just down there, just go, okay, And if you could imagine just a school full of 16-year-old girls in the middle of Guadalajara. Anyway, so that was a crazy summer. I did make it through it, but, and the next thing, one of my best friends and I decided that we needed to live in Sarasota, Florida for the summer and work. And Mom said, sure. So here we're off. And, it's another summer of, just partying. I was older than that. I'm sorry. I was probably 17. I don't know. Anyway, it was an amazing experience. And I worked at the Waffle House, and my girlfriend and I and she worked at, some restaurant, and we tried to figure out how to pay rent on some house that it was a crazy time. So those are the kind of things that I experienced as a teenager, getting exposed to some kind of unusual situations. One thing that, I don't know that I can forgive, I've forgiven Mom for a lot of things, but, I going on to college, that was always something that I was going to do, certainly, but I remember the night before I was to take my SAT for college. I was a senior in high school, and I went out and partied all night, and got up the next day, and I guess I blamed Mom because I wanted her to be more on top of things. I wanted her to be more disciplined with me. Make sure that I get this done right. And I remember going to my test, my exam, and I didn't know. I was still drunk. I was just drunk. So, I was just checking off boxes. I guess, trying to get into a college. They just thought, who is this person? And why are they, after reading my scores. But I actually did get into to Kentucky, University of Kentucky, and Western Kentucky University. I'm sorry, and went down there. It's about 3 hours from home, and just continued to kind of do my thing. I was partying some. Getting involved in some. Maybe some situations that I shouldn't have with some guys and some other things. And again, my big love in college was a guy that, had flunked out of college twice, and, was like 8 years older than me. And, he was, so here I am hanging out with once again, with the older guys. But, I managed to make it through. Actually, I probably would not have made it through in 4 years had my uncle not been on the board there at the university and kind of helped that out. It's interesting when back when my father was killed. I don't know if they still have this program or not, but it was called the War Orphans Benefits for children. So if you go to college in state, then your all your tuition is paid for. That's within a 4-year time period. Your tuition is paid for, and you get X amount of dollars. Everything's paid for: room and board, books, everything. You get money every month to live on. While I was in college, my mom thought it was a good idea that I buy a car. My uncle had a dealership there in town, and so I went out and bought a brand new Dodge Charger. This is 73, so nobody on campus had cars. There were probably 4 cars on campus. And, so here I come up with this new Dodge Charger SE, and, it's crazy. I mean, I was, once again, just, I thought I was hot stuff. I was pretty arrogant. I had made I had a lot of friends because I had a car. There were a lot of people that really, really liked me a lot because I could get them places that they wanted to go. So anyway, but you had to, with that program that I'm talking about, you had to graduate within 4 years. So I think that's why my uncle helped give the push, so Mom didn't have to, spend any out-of-pocket money. And after that, I managed to get an internship and be hired by a really good design firm in Lexington, an interior design firm. That was my major. After I finished my internship there, they hired me, and life was good. I wasn't too crazy. I was working hard. They didn't pay squat, so my roommate and I at the time had to, work 2 jobs. We valet park cars at night, and of course we would go out after we finished valet parking. We would go to the bars at midnight or 1, and stay until 2 or 3, and then I'd have to be back at my real job in the morning at 8. And that's just what we did. But I was able to still be responsible and live my life. At this point, I met my first husband, who was, again, 10 years older, and kept getting older. The older I got, the older my guys got. And that's still the case today. I kind of lost my train of thought there. So, I met my first husband, and I was happy as I could be. I was teaching exercise classes 3 or 4 times a day. My best friend and I started a company called We Chairs. We designed and sold children's upholstered furniture. I mean, I was busy with my interior design work. I was, I was on fire. And then, I have 2 children, 2 years apart, 2 daughters. And life was good. I mean, I thought everything was great. My children's father was, I always thought, we were living in a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful house. I thought we had it all made. I didn't think that I had to make any money. He was bringing in the dough. We're doing great. So, he's paying all the bills. He's, doing all the tax returns. I'm just kind of signing when I need to, not paying a bit of attention. 11 years later, one day the doorbell rings, and this person hands me this sheet of paper and said, "You're being sued." And that happened quite regularly in the weeks to come after that. My husband had borrowed from 40 some odd banks and forged my name on lots of loans, and so we ended up having to take bankruptcy, and it was a real difficult time, obviously. At first I thought our marriage would survive. I was determined to make this work. We went to counseling, marital counseling, and my whole deal with him was, as long as you're honest with me, just let me know what's going on. As long as I know that I can deal with it. And when I found out through a friend that our house was being sold on the courthouse steps, that's when I knew it was over. And so, the girls and I were, luckily I had my older brother. I went and stayed with my older brother and his wife in South Carolina for several months, just trying to pull it all together. and I decided to go back to Lexington and, you know, try to find a job. I mean, everybody else in the family wanted me to move away, you know, get out of there, you know, move away. But anyway, I went back, found a job, and started, you know, had to have a job with benefits. So I started working at the Kentucky Lottery. I did my design work at night. So there was no time for a lot of drinking except on the weekends when I started dating and, you know, getting into that. But, you know, I had so many responsibilities, you know, with between work and the kids and, you know, all the stuff that was going on. Other than that, you know, with the divorce and and everything. So you know, it wasn't. I certainly wasn't, you know, drinking hard then. It's interesting when I look back on my life how my drinking just increased as the years went on. You know, it got a little heavier through that period, but you know, I wasn't drinking alcoholically at all in those days. You know, I managed to, you know, I was able to meet some friends that you know, I got into some investments with, and you know, I started making some money of my own, and you know, so I got the girls and I into a nice house, and you know, it took us several years to, you know, to work through a lot of this, but through the help of a lot of my friends and a lot of wonderful people, I was able to, you know, to manage this. Dating quite a bit there in the last couple of years, and that's where I met my second husband. Actually, we met on a blind date that lasted 10 days. Yeah, so, you know, we, yeah, it was love. Actually, it was, and you know, I can say to this day that I truly love this man dearly, and you know, thought that he did too. Certainly, you know, he was everything. He was kind, compassionate, considerate, attentive. You know, and we were doing long distance. He was from North Carolina, and we were long distance, but he managed to come every weekend, or I would come to North Carolina, and see him on the weekend. So, you know, we were together a lot. Got married 10 months later here in North Carolina, and I moved my children and myself to Raleigh. And this is when things just kind of fell apart. He just wasn't, it was like a Jekyll and Hyde, and was not able to deal with a marriage and 2 kids, even though he had 2 sons. And they were real upset about the marriage. There was a lot of family money involved there on his side, so his kids were real concerned that, you know, somebody else might get that. Not that ever happened, but you know, that was a big concern there. But you know, I just thought, hey, this is great, until all of a sudden it wasn't, and that's when my drinking really took off. I was not prepared in any way for the heartache, for the hurt, for the, you know, for any of it. I did not know how to deal. I was in shock. I just, you know, I could not believe that this person that I thought was perfect in every way for me was not so quickly. So we went through, you know, a few years and tried to pull it back together. Went into some marital counseling, and things got better. But he was a heavy drinker, and actually probably, you know, a heavy drinker. He never drank during the day. I managed to do enough of that for both of us later on. So, but yeah. So anyway, we about, I don't know, maybe 2002, I ended up having a foot surgery and got some good drugs for that. About 6 months later, the foot surgery had to be redone. So I got some more good drugs for that. About 6 months later, another foot surgery, all on the same foot. So for about 2 years, they were giving me, you know, anything I want, whatever I wanted for pain. And so I was a happy girl there for 2 years, and drinking right along with it, not realizing the dangers that you know, that I was in. At some point along there, you know, I got a DUI, that was early back. I guess that was back when there weren't a whole lot of consequence. And luckily, when I got my DUI, I was out at 3:00 in the morning doing things that I didn't need to be doing without being married and being just whatever. Nobody needed to be out doing what I was doing. But I told they took me to jail. I told my husband that I'd been to the grocery. And that's how insane is that? I thought it was perfectly reasonable. Yeah, well, I was out of the grocery. Told the police that, and they're just looking like, what? Yeah. So, but my point is, about getting back to the foot surgery. When I stopped being able to get the prescriptions for the drugs, I realized I had some friends, some coworkers in my design field that were involved. In fact, a good friend was a big dealer. So he became one of my best friends, and I found that I could do, something. I could keep on with this, and so I did. And my drinking obviously really increased, and my marriage started, crumbling again, and so finally the drug dealer gets busted. And I'm too chicken to go out on the street and look for drugs. I just couldn't do. I'm just not me. I couldn't do it. It was nice being able to get it from this guy because he would just come and hand it to me at the house. I didn't have to go out and do anything. And I was just too chicken. So that was it for me and drugs. Until this surgery, I haven't done anything. But but I had to have something to keep this going. And so for me, it was the alcohol, it was the vodka and the wine. At that point, I was drinking during the day. My brother wanted to do an intervention, and my husband told me about it the night before. So I begged him to call. I said, please, just call and tell my brother that he can't do this to me. I can't go. I can't do this. I can't do it. And so he did. He called my brother and said, no, you're not coming to get no intervention, which probably would have been the best thing that could have ever happened to me at the time. But that didn't happen. But eventually, a few years later, my marriage ended, and I was offered to do some contract work down in Fort Lickerdale, as we like to call it. And so here I am once again, just having at it, and my drinking got worse. I'm down there with nobody that I know much, and I had one friend, and who was only there part-time. So, so my drinking increased drastically. My children asked me if I thought that I'd like to get sober, and I was so, I was depressed. I felt like I was, that I needed some help, but I didn't want to call myself an alcoholic, but I agreed to go to a treatment center. So I went to this treatment center in Florida, and I was not ready at all. I was not open. I was not open-minded about my alcoholism. I was not willing to do the work. For 35 days, I sat in there and read Daniel Steele novels because my roommate had them. Her husband was bringing them to her, and instead of doing anything that I was supposed to be doing with the big book or my worksheets or whatever, I'm just going through the novels, and I'm not like those other people out there. Good grief, I can do this, and so I come out of there and obviously start drinking again, and it gets much worse. But I'm lying to everybody at this point. Okay, I'm not telling anybody that I'm drinking. So when everybody comes to visit, anybody comes to my house, I'm hiding it. I'm in my closet drinking, or I'm wherever the bottle was hidden. And I have a man in my life that's just an amazing person. He put up with a lot through all that, and he was the only person for some reason I was really ugly to and really nasty to, but he really wanted to see me sober, and neither one of us knew anything about alcoholism at that point because I missed that opportunity at the first treatment center. But he used to believe that, if you just control it, why don't you just have 2 glasses of wine tonight instead of 5, and just, control it. You've got willpower. You're so strong. You've done it all. I wasn't, obviously, I couldn't do it on my own. But again, I wasn't ready to quit. So I ended up moving up here. My children live in Raleigh, and they started getting ready to have babies, and I wanted to be close, and so I picked Southern Pines to move to, and here my drinking increased greatly. I, continued to be horrible to my boyfriend. I, pulled some real stunts. Actually, my oldest daughter has her first baby was a preemie, and was born in Charlotte at Presbyterian, and she was involved in a foundation called Be Mighty. She's on the board, and all the funds are raised for these preemies at Presbyterian Hospital in Charlotte. And I was asked to go to a function there at the Charlotte Country Club, and LD and my boyfriend and I went, and we drove up there and got there, checking into the hotel because we're going to spend the night and have a big time, and it was noon. We'd go and have lunch, and I have a couple of glasses of wine, and then I've got my vodka hidden, in my suitcase. So I'm drinking that through the afternoon. I don't remember getting dressed for the function. Don't remember going there. The next thing that I remember is waking up the next morning and just shaking my head. All that remorse and that shame and that guilt, knowing once again that I really, really screwed up. I mean, I've done something horrible. And, I didn't pass out, or my daughter told me, she said, it really wasn't too bad. You were stumbling, so I had, LD take you out. But it hurt her so greatly, and my son-in-law as well, and my boyfriend. And, I just continued to hurt people. I continued to hurt people with my drinking, and I didn't care because it was all about getting that next drink at that point. I couldn't imagine my life without alcohol. But I had gotten to the point where I was, I just felt like I was in a prison because I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know what to do. I was filled with despair. I was depressed. I was angry. I was, I didn't know how I was going to manage my life. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And it wasn't long after that, so I'm drinking all day, every day. I don't know, y'all. I could be drinking 2 gallons of vodka a day. I have no clue. I'm drinking and I'm passing out, and I'm drinking again and passing out, and that was my life. Don't know how I got anything. Don't know how I paid the bills. I have no clue how any of that happened. It did manage to get done, but it was a mess. So at one point, I was passed out, and my phone rings, and I wake up and I look at my phone, and it says 7 o'clock, and it was my daughter, and and I said, "Oh, good morning, sweetie." She goes, "Mom, it's 7 o'clock at night," and I just went, "Oh, here we go." And so it was a day or two later, she called back. She and my other daughter called back and just said, "This is it. We've had it. You either get sober, or you will not be around our children, your grandchildren. You won't be around us. We're not going to have anything to do with you. We don't want our children to be around a drunk, and I don't want to be around you as a drunk." And I knew she was serious, and it scared me so bad. It frightened me because I knew my children mean everything to me. I knew that the one thing that I couldn't lose was my family, my children. And at that point, I had 2 grandchildren, and I can't, this can't happen. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I said, okay, I'll go to detox right away. I went, I don't know if it was that day or the next morning, whatever. I drove myself to, or maybe I had somebody else drive me to detox. They didn't take me that first time. I was so obnoxious. Oh yeah, I had a friend take me. I was so obnoxious. After 6 hours of waiting, I just said, I'm out of here. This is, I'm not doing this. And, I was drunk as a skunk. So, she takes me home and, my daughter's like, what? What are you doing? And so, I do whatever I mean. I go back and try again, and they didn't let me in again. And this is after, I don't know, 12 hours, whatever. They just didn't want me. And so I go back home, and I hadn't had sleep in days, but I remember laying there on my bed, and it was, 7 o'clock that morning. I'm talking to my daughter, and she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm just waiting a little while. I'm going to go back to detox, but I've got to try to get some sleep. And she said, are you going to drink? And I said, oh, no. And I really meant that. I thought, no, I'm not going to drink. I have no plans. I've got to get back to detox, get this going. And meantime, my brother and everybody's working on getting me a bed in a treatment center. And anyway, it all worked out. And what I want to say is that by 9 o'clock, I had to have a drink. I went to the liquor store. I bought the smallest bottle of vodka that, I don't know what they are, pints, half pints, I have no clue. But I took it home, and I had a couple sips out of it. And I remember just pouring the rest of it down the drain. I knew that this was it for me. And I knew that there had to be something better for my life, that there had to be a way out of this, a solution. I didn't know it at the time, really, but, I guess I had some hope at that point. Because I did go back and to the emergency room, and they sent me up to detox. So, and I stayed there, went on to treatment. This time for treatment, for me, I was willing, I was open, I was ready. I was, they told me that I had to be honest, and, I had a hard time with that one, certainly there for a while, but, I was more than willing. And, I think I found hope there. I started to have some spiritual hope. I started to have a relationship with my higher power. I began to pray in the mornings. I began to pray at night. And, all of a sudden I just, I felt like it's going to work. Something good is going to happen to me. And I can remember being just pretty happy about, by the 35 days or whatever it was, I just knew that I could do this. I was taught there when I left, the first thing that I was supposed to do was to get to an AA meeting. And that when I left, that I was to follow directions, that I was never to say no, that I was to listen and do what I was told. And that's really exactly what I did when I got here. I went to a meeting that night, met some wonderful, wonderful people who have helped me tremendously. I started working the steps, really, really concerned about the fourth step. When I started going through the big book and working the steps and getting to my fourth step and my fifth step and realizing that I could be honest about this, because I was really afraid that I still wasn't ready to be honest. But it worked, it happened. And, it's just, getting through those 12 steps was an amazing experience. It certainly, the big book has taught me so much. It's taught me that, I need to get up every morning and pray that, that I can be, I think it says in the big book, be divorced from self-pity and self-seeking and dishonest motives. I asked for that. I'm grateful for so many things today. Today I get to, I get to get up and pray, and I get to feel good in the morning. I get to call my grandson or my granddaughter or my children or my brother or, friends, both in and out of the program. I get to walk. I get to, do all the things that I couldn't do when I was living in that prison of alcohol. I have the freedom now to be able to live this life that the big book promised. As long as I tried to live by spiritual principles that are outlined in that big book and go out and help others each day. And every time I start feeling sorry for myself and start living in that world of self-pity, I try to think about doing something for somebody else. It doesn't always work, but I'm getting better at it. Things are progressing nicely, I think. Yeah, it's just, and I know that that God is living in me, that my higher power is there living with me, and I need to go through each day and ask, and throughout the day, and that's the other thing that the big book, asks us to do, tells us to do, I guess, is to, ask always throughout the day, if we're upset about something or don't know what to do about something, to just ask that thy will be done. And I find that when I do that, it usually works out for the best. So, you all, thank you so much. I appreciate you.